Fiona Scott's a director of Gort Scott Architects. She was a member of the Mayor's Design Advisory Group back in 2013 and is currently one of the Mayor's Design Advocates. And as a part of Sadiq Khan's Good Growth Agenda, Gort Scott as a practice worked on the report High Streets and Town Centres Adaptive Strategies. So Fiona, as non-essential shops open and things start to get back to normal, are the findings of that report, which of course was published before lockdown last year, are they still relevant? And what lessons does it have for us today?
I mean, yes, it's still completely relevant. I mean, I think that anyone who kind of delves into the guidance will find a lot of really useful context around sort of analysis of trends, which are still completely relevant, but also really practical ideas and practical precedents. At the core, the sort of core section of the guidance is a series of illustrated propositions, so kind of actual proposals, and these were based on real scenarios on case study London High Street. So we met with local authorities and their stakeholders, and we examined some of the really interesting and often quite innovative projects and initiatives that were already happening there. And then the idea was that we were then sort of pushing and amplifying them to set out ways of responding to some of the most pressing challenges. And of course, those challenges are completely different in different places. Like in Harlesden, for example, it was like about how quite traditional high street could sort of expand its offer and meet changing sort of consumer needs, so around the experience economy or kind of convenience, and that is still absolutely relevant now. On Stratford High Street, big plots were being developed all along the high road, but the space of the road itself sort of needing to be humanized to sort of meet the needs of all the new people coming in, all of the new communities. I think there's a huge amount of kind of money still going into housing infrastructure, and the sort of need to for streets to evolve to kind of accommodate that is extremely important. Another one example is Dalston, where we were looking at how sort of traders and high street users could get the most benefit out of sort of the Wi-Fi infrastructure that was kind of being examined at the time. So yeah, even before the pandemic, it was the point of the guidance, and the reason that we were appointed was to kind of look at the really far-reaching challenges, things that were coming down the track, and all of those things around sort of relative fragility of mixed uses, of different uses under economic or commercial stress when places are kind of changing, and work styles were already changing, shopping was already changing, we've got problems with traffic and pollution. So yeah, and we've all been talking about this now for over a year, I guess, but it's really forced us to think very hard about how we live in cities and what it is that we value. And I hope that the pandemic's galvanized the resolve to sort of really seriously address what was already happening, and that, the hope is that we will actually address some of those fundamental issues that in many cases are already there, and not just sort of paper over the cracks in the coming recovery.
So the mayor has said that he supports the concept of the 15-minute city. What do you think that means for London?
Yeah, so the mayor talked about 15-minute neighbourhoods, and I think it's particularly discussed in the context of high streets as part of the kind of key COVID recovery missions. I don't think it's a hard or coherent policy at present like it is in Paris, but it's a kind of idea. And I think that everyone really gets the idea of embracing the local, and it definitely makes a lot of sense in London. But I think even before the pandemic, at least more than 50% of working age Londoners weren't leaving their local area on a daily basis anyway. I sort of think that in the past, there was a sense that it was those people who have had less choice and fewer opportunities, people who are sort of more socially and economically excluded, who were more localized, who kind of were more confined to their local area. But it's almost like there's been a bit of a shift, and it seems like those who have more choices and more opportunities, the kind of professional home workers, have been able to stay more locally, and the sort of lower paid workers who've often had, you know, to travel a lot further from home to work. I think it's sort of generally quite difficult to imagine everyone in London working kind of 15 minutes from home, and it's quite, certainly from today's perspective, quite a sort of privileged viewpoint. But you know, the idea that all of London's areas and neighbourhoods have opportunities for work and fun and culture and town centres and sort of high streets that we can be proud of is great, and we have the urban infrastructure to kind of allow that to happen. I guess I find it a bit limiting, the idea of a 15-minute city, you know, but still, you know, all the benefits of a more livable city still hold, you know, even if you're traversing it on your bike or walking with much kind of wider spheres of influence. I get the impression that in London, the 15-minute city is kind of cast much more around sustainable transport and movement, but one of the really attractive elements of the 15-minute city is more around localized economic ecosystems, so kind of addressing the massive wealth inequality in London and how we kind of retain value that's built within a local area. And you know, I think there definitely has been a sort of genuine shift in sort of mindset or change in heart to thinking more locally, but at the same time, you know, Amazon and online are going through the roof, and you know, we need to find a way for the local and the global to sort of coexist mutually and to sort of support each other.
So you're well known for these sorts of research projects. As a practice, you've got a pretty rich mix of architectural work too, haven't you? From Cambridge colleges to Waltham Forest. What are the key projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we get asked a lot about high streets and town centres, so it's quite nice to talk about some of the other projects that are going on. I mean, we are essentially mixed use architects, and obviously mixed use in London sort of invariably involves housing, so we do a lot of housing as well. A couple of the interesting projects that we've started on earlier this year are in the Lee Valley. So we're doing a project in Leighton for we're actually working with the council, but it's also working with a lot of the landowners. So it's kind of picking up on a lot of the stuff around that came out of the high streets and adaptive strategies as well. But so it's looking at the old Spitalfields Market site, the retail park site in Leighton Town Centre, and some of the other major sites that span the kind of Valley Edge and Leighton High Street, sort of defining goals and priorities for the area, and like hopefully allowing all those sites to come forward in a way that builds towards a shared vision for the place. And then just down the valley, sort of slightly different scale, 3 Mills film and TV production studios. So we're doing a kind of refurbishment and kind of adding to the sort of little really lovely ensemble of listed mill buildings right on the River Lee, the sort of gin still custom house, and that should be going on site later this year. Interestingly, we've also got a couple of office projects that have been going forward despite all the gloom about the kind of commercial sector. I mean, they were already underway, so you know, we'll see what happens. But so Gateway West, it's a new office, just sort of very characterful standalone little office building as part of the Alice Morrison Gateway master plan in White City, and also a project for the City of London Corporation next to Liverpool Street Station. So kind of reusing an existing structure and kind of making an upward extension. That's also going on site this year. So yeah, interesting.
Aren't you also working on the Waltham Forest Civic Centre and the refurbishment and the changes and new development around that?
Yes, we are. That's just gone into planning. So that's the master plan for the Civic campus and the kind of consolidation of all of the council services on the site. and releasing some of the sites further wider in the borough for housing. And yeah, so it's a new civic building.
So I see from your website that you're advertising for staff. So does that mean you're optimistic that things are going to get back to relative normality soon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic that there will, about there being opportunities and, interesting things continuing to happen. I mean, in terms of advertising for jobs, it's a case of, for us, as kind of investing in design technology and new business resources. I mean, I think for us, we started up just before the last big recession, and our experience of, being an architect, it's not a cozy profession, and we've never rested on our laurels. We've always been on our toes and trying to stay ahead of changing, economy, changing legislation. Now more than ever, kind of social change. So yeah, it's, I guess, I don't know, as far as our own little Gort Scott ecosystem, things are okay. Projects that have been on pause are kind of going ahead, and that's nice. But we definitely want to be getting back in person, working, because it's been very productive the last year, I think, but it's just driving everyone a bit mad at this point. I think the kind of lack of it's sort of chance, incidental stuff on every single level. It's the sort of lack of networking. As a business owner, I've never been more in tune with kind of what's with science, looking around to see what new variants are coming up, and what's happening in the world of vaccines. But you just do not know what's happening. We don't know what's happening, and like the message from like epidemiologists to economists to environmentalists is that we have to live with uncertainty, and that's what it is now. So.
Yeah, well, I guess we're all hoping we're going to get back to some sort of normality fairly soon, and at least things are going in sort of the right direction. But as you say, we've got to keep an eye open for changing science. So, Fiona, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Good to talk to you.